Off to Parys Mountain then this morning, thanks to Andy Chisholm, who mentioned it on Twitter. Looking forward to it. It's an old copper mine, looks pretty fantastic in the pictures, and it's such a gorgeous morning. It's, well, I guess the future's so bright I've got to wear shades. So, that was a moment of how high is this camper van, and I think it's definitely over 7'8". So here we are then, in the old copper mines. It's called Parys Mountain. Oh, let's go around that way, the sun's right in the eyes. So when I got here, as you saw, I couldn't get in to the proper car park. However, parked over the road, and the book, the guidebook that I had, said that there was a map available, and on the sign that they said there was an iPhone app with a map. And I think, looking by the picture of the iPhone, it was a few years ago and no such app exists. So I'm just wandering around. It's piles and piles of, I guess this is, do you call it slag when it's copper? I don't know, but, waste material from the mining, and you can kind of smell the minerality in the air, and the ore on the ground. If I perhaps show you, I don't know if you can see that. But there's perhaps a, well, to my eyes there's a very definite green in it. So I guess, yeah, it's got copper in it. I don't know why it's left. I guess it's just it's not as rich as the stuff they were digging out. But all around there's this colour of oranges and greens and yellows in the rock. And I've got no idea where I'm going because there's no map or anything, but I'm just going to wander and see if there's anything here. Well, I guess there is stuff here because people have told me to come here, but I guess my challenge now is to find it. Okay, so I'm standing in the middle of the old copper workings now, and all around is just piles and piles of, I guess, old ore that has either been processed or is just waste. And if I turn this way, behind me there is an old building that looks like it's been made of actually the ore of copper. So, and if I flip this around, it'll be, the sun will be in it, but I think you can start to get the sense of just how vast this place was, or is. And I think this was the premier source for copper in the 18th century, and I'm pretty sure that Chile has that accolade these days. And I think when we were there, we saw the open cast copper mine in there, and I'd say it probably dwarfs this, but standing here now it's pretty spectacular. It's pretty amazing that you can walk wherever you want to walk here, with a few exceptions. So this bit here has got barbed wire fence, and I don't know, it says beware of the edge, so I guess there's a big drop off the other side, but I'll walk down and perhaps I can see where it is from down there. And here's another view of just how deep we go. So if I pan down, it's obviously difficult with a 2D camera to get a sense of it. I don't know if you can just see, but there's some tyres down there, so you can get a sense of how far down it is. I don't know actually how far they dug down. I'll perhaps do a bit more research on it and put that in my blog on this place. So I guess one of the things I'd ask myself as a coming here is what's in it for a landscape photographer, which might sound like a daft question, because there's spectacular all around if your idea of spectacular is this I guess almost wilderness left by the copper workings, and there's certainly not a lot growing here, not a lot of vegetation. There's a few scrappy plants, but for me, sort of, I struggle a little bit, because there's the trying to capture the scale of it in an image is always going to be very difficult, and and then if it's not scale, then you're capturing detail. And I guess if you wander around this place a lot and really got to know it, and you could do some pretty good abstracts with the different colours and textures in front, but for the visitor, that's always going to be hard work. So there's the tower up there that makes a good focal point, and perhaps set that against a moody sky, or even today where you've got clouds in the sky and blue sky, you get something out of that. But yeah, I mean, for me it's more of a place to come and visit, and I suppose just understand a little bit more about our industrial past. As we've got pretty much all of the ore and wealth out of our own ground now. There's not many mines working still across the United Kingdom, but it's still interesting to come back here and just look at what we did in the past. And there's probably not that many places in the UK where you could just walk around old mining facilities. So yeah, for that reason, it's definitely worth coming if you're in North Wales, and definitely if you're in Anglesey and this kind of stuff floats your boat. Good morning, it's Tuesday, and I can finally see where it is I stopped last night. And if I flip around, so can you. So that's Snowdonia range over there, with the sun just coming up behind it. Fairly spectacular view, but I've got to move on, because I didn't realise was this campsite doesn't have showers or toilet, and I've got a strictly no number twos policy in the inside toilet, so I'm going to move on and find somewhere for this morning's operations. See you in a minute. Okay, so after another torturous few kilometres on very small roads in I haven't actually shown you yet, have I? In this, we're finally here, and I guess if you can see just about in the background there, that's Great Orme Lighthouse, which was built in the 1830s, and just going to go and wander down and take a look. So yeah, let's go and see. So this was, as I said, built in the 1830s, and that was predominantly because of a shipwreck here of a steamer with a loss of 130 lives. And as with all of our lighthouses now, it's no longer manned, it's automated. And I don't know if you can hear every now and again, there's a bell that rings. Pretty good view. Mountains in the background. I guess that's a another navigational aid there out on the rock. And here's what come to photograph. It's sat on a shoreline of looks like it's covered in seaweed. You've got rock on this side and a shingle bank on this side. Again, it's lovely, calm day, so no dramas, and it's just about really wandering around until I've found a composition. There's a path that goes to the lighthouse, and I think when the tide is fully out, that path goes all the way to the lighthouse. It doesn't at the moment, but that could be a lead-in line. Let me have a look round and I'll rejoin you. I wandered down the path, essentially to the water's edge, because what I wanted to do was get as little of the lighthouse breaking the horizon as possible. And if I just flip round, so you can see now I've got just the lower portion of the lighthouse breaking horizon, and that's not painted black, so perhaps less of a distraction. And I guess what you can see there is potentially the composition I'm going for. So we've got that island to the right, we've got a little bit of rocks in front of the island, and almost using the shadow of the lighthouse as a leading line. And I quite like the cloud behind, but I'm been playing around with focal lengths about 30mm from where I am. It seems to be about right to get this sort of composition. So what I think I might do here is put a filter on and get smooth water, get a very clear reflection in that water from the lighthouse, but take 2 exposures so that the sky, I'll take that without the filter, so the sky then is not blurred. But I'll have a look, as I say, take both exposures, and probably find out when I get back home whether I need to combine them or whether the long exposure's okay. Depends on how long or how fast the clouds are moving. So I'll set up. Right, so I changed to a 24 to 70mm lens because I think that's probably sharper at about 30mm. Then I took a test shot. That was about 20 seconds for correct exposure. I actually overexposed it a little looking at the histogram, and that's something you should always do. Have a look at your histogram, your RGB histogram, and see whether there's an opportunity to overexpose slightly without clipping the highlights. So did that. That gave me an exposure of 20 seconds. Then I put a 10-stop filter on. I used the Lee Filters app to tell me that I needed to then go for a 20-second exposure. At that point, you put your camera into manual focus, manual focus, and then because it's 20 seconds, you can just change, either put your camera into manual to get 20 seconds, or I just overexposed until it told me it was going to take a 20-second exposure. Had a look at that, there's actually room to expose it a little more, so eventually I settled on a 30-second exposure, and a quick look at it, it looks like the sky isn't going to be too blurred. The clouds are obviously moving very quickly, so I mean that's probably as good as I'm going to get here. I'm going to have another look round and see what else I can find. If I flip this around, I actually quite like those two buildings up there. I think they're the houses of the lighthouse keepers, when there were lighthouse keepers. And if I can get that with the snowy mountains in the background, that'll be quite nice. But I'll have a quick look around and see whether there's anything else worth capturing. Otherwise I'll probably just have a walk and a wander, and because who doesn't like being by the sea? So I will see you in a minute. You always got to ask yourself whether where you first set your tripod was the best place, and I've taken a fairly treacherous walk over all this seaweed you can see behind me to see whether just moving a few yards to the left would actually give me a stronger composition. I guess what it does give me, if I can let you see, is you've got those windows there slightly more centered, and I might just take another shot from here. In the end I did use a 15-stop filter, and just felt that gave the shadow in the water a bit more punch, but the tide is coming in now, and the rocks that were performing a sort of leading line function are now under the waves, so maybe not, but I'd stay, take the shot, compare and contrast afterwards. That's photography, I guess.